All right. So welcome, Dave. So this is going to be our final expense insurance and presentation. And just really, I want to educate people on, is final expense insurance something that might be suitable for you? A little bit about myself. My name is Kristin Rocheleau. I put it phonetically on my name on the little chat box, just because sometimes it's kind of hard to pronounce that last name. But everyone that was invited to come to the webinar today, they're all existing clients. And we just want to make sure that you are educated on what final expense insurance is. So a little bit about myself. I graduated from Davenport University. I have a bachelor's in health administration, and I worked a few years downtown Grand Rapids at St. Mary's Hospital. And then I worked at a medical staffing company for a few years. So last year, with COVID and everything, I decided to make a career shift, and I went and I got my state license. And now I work alongside Nancy Corser, which many of you probably know, and I do what she does. So I'm also an independent agent, and we work with multiple different insurance carriers. I'm sure a lot of you know that the big thing that we work with on the health side of the company here is Medicare. But today I just want to also tell you about some of our other ancillary products that we do. Final expense will obviously be what we're diving into today, but there's also long-term care, hospital indemnity. We do separate dental and vision, life insurance. So a lot of other products. If there is anything that you ever are wondering about, just let us know and we can see if we can help you. And if we can't, then we'll definitely give you some guidance into what the next best route would be. So if you did receive any of the documents, which Dave, I don't believe that you did, I'll just email you after, but I included just a slideshow for this. So if you wanted to take notes along the way, and then an eval form at the end. So I'll send that out to you after the presentation. So let's get started. So is final expense insurance right for you? You know what final expense insurance is? And not really. Well, final expense insurance, it's about insurance that is designated to help someone's end of life needs. And as we all know, life is full of unknowns, and someday we will meet our maker, whether it is expected or unexpected. And during those times, there's going to be things to plan for. So basically, final expense insurance is something that you can purchase that comes in, and it will help you create a plan for your loved ones, and that it helps prepare them financially, giving you a peace of mind, and then just providing that security and protection for those that you leave behind. The big thing about final expense is being prepared, of course. And then here's some highlights here. Final expense is simplified issue whole life insurance. So this is a type of permanent life insurance that provides a small amount of coverage for some people who maybe don't normally qualify for traditional insurance. It's designated to be the insurance that takes care of one's end of life needs. And everything about final expense insurance is meant to be guaranteed, quick, and simplistic. It's liberally underwritten, so that just means that there's limited or if any medical underwriting questions to the policies. It just depends on which policy, but basically, regardless of your health here, you are eligible for some sort of coverage. And then again, really designated to be simple. It's very cost effective. Most plans are as low or lower than a monthly phone bill. It just depends on what size of a policy that you're looking at, but it's really just designed to be cost effective. So something that you can maintain. And then the death benefit for final expense insurance has a quick payout. So it generally pays out within 48 to 72 hours, where life insurance, which is another great way to be preparing for end of life needs for your loved ones, Life insurance usually can be tied up between 30 to 45 days before that beneficiary would receive the payment. So with the quick death benefit payout to your beneficiary or beneficiaries, generally they should have the money before the funeral home or whatever your wishes are would be needing that bill be paid. So kind of a nice thing there. And then it is a tax-free death benefit. So the money is protected and will not be income taxed. So have you planned for your end of life needs? And some of you maybe you already have life insurance, but this is just another route to look at. And today I'm not here to sell you a policy, but simply just to educate you on what final expense is and how it's different from life insurance. Knowing the good from the bad. And when I'm saying that, I'm just saying knowing the good of if you have a plan versus not having a plan. These are some types of final expense products. And the number one that we use, or the most policies that we write, is a simplified issue whole life insurance. About 85% of the policies that we sell are this type of coverage. There are a couple yes or no health questions that are involved, and that is something that I would go through with you to make sure that, yeah, you can answer everything as a no. And then generally the simplified issue policies, they are less expensive. Now, the other one that we sell a lot of is the guaranteed issue whole life. That one has no medical underwriting. So you're guaranteed in, but they are a little bit more expensive. So we probably like 8 to 10%, maybe we write there, but generally it's always the simplified issue. And then there is another choice, single pay lump sum. So just like that sounds, you're going to pay it up front. And this type of policy, it allows you to pay the policy up and be done, but it's also actually a really good way to transfer wealth. Because if you put in, we'll just do an example, but if you put in, you have $10,000 and you want to put it in here, you put that 10K in and we would run a quote and determine which insurance carrier that we'd want to go with. But because they invest that money along the way and you don't have a monthly bill, you actually are going to be earning more back. So your 10K policy could turn out to be at the end a $16,000 policy. So just another idea to look at things. And of course you have to pay it all up front. Or the other two, you can pay for a full year, but you can't pay upfront. You can also do monthly and quarterly on the top two items. So another thing with kind of like thinking about a single pay is I know that there are some people, some individuals who maybe there's a funeral home in town that you want to go and put your money to. You have $10,000 and you want to go just put it at the funeral home, take care of the services and just have it be done. Now, if that's what you want to do, that's great because it's another plan that you have, right? But the only thing I would just suggest is looking into something like this before doing that, only because sometimes, I don't know, in 10 to 15 years, 20 years down the road, what if management changes there and the funeral home is it's not as nice anymore? Or worst case scenario, they end up going out of business for some reason. So if you do that, your money is isolated there and your beneficiaries, I mean, they just go there, but they can't use the money for anything else. So it's just another thing that I would recommend to look at before making that choice. And then this takes me to, so Social Security is not very, they're not going to give us a lot of money when we pass away. So they're only going to pay out $255 to your loved one. At least they're giving something, but it's just not very much these days. So on average today, the end of life costs are around $12,000 to $15,000. And that definitely depends on what your wishes are, because then sometimes it could be more. And then with the cost of living, things will just continue to go up. So that $255 that Social Security gives us, I mean, that doesn't touch anything really. I don't even know that it would cover the flowers. So what are some of the other costs that are involved with final expense? Or I'm sorry, even just with the funeral? There are going to be immediate expenses, that those funds that you would need right away. And then there's also the additional expenses. So today in Michigan, on average, just for a funeral service, and that does not include everything down the list, but just that top bulleted item, the funeral service, it generally will cost between $7,000 to $9,000. And then depending on your wishes, I mean, do you want to have a visitation and a viewing? Some people don't even want to do that. Do you have a family plot, or do you need to get a cemetery plot? A casket's definitely not included in the funeral service cost, or a headstone. Transportation should be included with that funeral service cost, and embalming, but flowers aren't. And then too, maybe you don't want to go that route and you would prefer to be cremated and then having an urn, but then you could still be buried in the ground. So just a lot of different things to think about what you really want. And then the additional expenses, your beneficiary might find out, and hopefully you've already talked about it, where they would know what to anticipate after you passing. But some of the additional things, I mean, do you have a bunch of outstanding debt, or were there outstanding medical bills, paying off your mortgage, or maybe you're still paying off a car? So a lot of different miscellaneous costs that could potentially be exposed to that beneficiary. And then this one I thought was kind of something I didn't really think about at first, but does your beneficiary have to travel? Are they coming from Arizona to Michigan or wherever to take care of everything? And do they have a family that they have to travel to? Do they have the funds to make that happen? So in final expense policies, you can have the money, they can use that for that as well. It's not just isolated to the funeral. And then so back like on the other page, the average cost in Michigan right now for 2022 for just that funeral service is going to be between $7,000 and $9,000. And then there's another company who is projecting that the funeral costs come 2030 are going to be around 18. But I even know some people right now who are doing the funeral thing where they put it all on the funeral home and they're already paying 15. So I think that 2030 could be even more than the 18, but right now, based on our current percentages and stuff, this is what they're projecting. So that's just something to think about if you did want this type of coverage, how big do you want your policy, since the cost of living and everything just keeps going up down the road, you might need a little bit more. So one of the good things about final expense insurance is right now you would be able to get into your lowest premium because you are your youngest age right now. So final expense insurance does have a guarantee where when you sign up for a policy, you are locked in at that premium forever. It's not going to go up and it's not going to go down. So the sooner you were to do a type of policy like this, the better. But it's not saying that if you're 80 and you decide, oh shoot, I need to get this coverage, you can definitely still get it. It's just going to be a higher premium than it would be today. And then this is another good thing to think about. While a lot of you may have you have the money, the funds in your existing bank account. So you are like, it's going to be fine. I don't need this kind of policy, but none of us know how long we're going to live. So are we going to exhaust these funds? Is that something that could potentially happen? And then what do my loved ones do? And then here on this note, I have just a personal example because my great aunt Stella, she lived to be almost 102 years old. And I think she was 101. She missed it by 2 months, but she was really healthy. And I'd say about when she was 90, she went into assisted living. And then she had done well for herself throughout life, but she exhausted those funds so quickly. So then my father and my aunt, they paid for the rest of her time once those were done, and they knew they were going to have to pay for the funeral. But it just ended up causing a lot of drama and stuff that you didn't want to have to deal with, like when you're mourning your loved one. And so had she had that final expense policy, at least the last piece, the funeral could have been covered. But too, since she lives so old, I don't know, her policy would have probably been a lot smaller than when she signed up long ago. But so one good thing about final expense, though, is that there are a lot of guarantees. So some of the guarantees, and I spoke to just a few minutes ago, was the first one, that you do have a fixed premium, meaning that it's not going to go up and it's not going to go down. You're always locked in, which is great. The fixed death benefit is going to be the same as well. Your policy size will not go up or down. So you get a $15,000 policy in 30 years, it's still going to be 15. And then final expense insurance lasts forever, where some life insurance that's term insurance, you could outlive your policy and then you paid into all that and then the policy is over because it's done. Well, final expense is different. It lasts forever, or until the policyholder passes away, or until, of course, you stop making your premium payments. And then the other good thing is that those that you care about, they will be protected. And hopefully that gives you some kind of peace of mind and you're just planning ahead for everything. One thing that isn't guaranteed, but it's not a bad thing, is just that over time with final expense, you will earn a small cash accumulation. So if final expense was something that you wanted to learn more about and come in and talk to myself or Nancy, this is what our appointment process looks like. And it's definitely something that we can do over Zoom, over the phone. We can email documents. So we're definitely flexible, whatever works for you. But we like to keep it to 2 appointments. Sometimes it could be just 1, depending on how much knowledge maybe you already have or you know what you want. And then during that first appointment, we do a lot of fact finding. I want to figure out, you know, what do you want to cover during our time together? What are your needs? And then really talk about your health history, because that's going to determine what one of those policies that we could put you into. And also, we just want to make sure that it's like makes financial sense to you, because we want it to be affordable. So during the second appointment, I always run have a really good quoting tool. So I would show you a few different options, different prices of policies, obviously explain those choices and what it looks like. We would need to fill out the application together. So I would just need all prescription drugs, a voided check for the payment, but we don't collect any payment here in-house. And then on the health side, of course, height and weight, we got to make sure that you fall within the right category. And then any of the underwriting questions, those are ones that too I like to go through with clients just to make sure that there's no doubts. Because if there is, then I want to call the underwriter just to make sure this is even worth us putting that application in, because there are other carriers. Everyone has different questions. So, and then once I submit the application, it's actually fairly simple after that. I even think sometimes it's in the same week that the underwriters will call you and they'll just go over everything. Not that they're questioning anything, but maybe they are, but regardless, they will call you just to go over things. So that kind of sums up the class. I know it's just a quick overview of what the final expense is, but it really is meant to be simple and easy. So if you have any questions or anything at this time.
What's the maximum policy size they'll typically issue out?
Yeah, so that's a good question. They definitely have different insurance carriers have different policy sizes. I would say the average or the highest that I really have seen is like 50,000 or 40,000.
Okay.
Yeah. And then your beneficiary, like I showed all those different costs that were potentially involved. Your beneficiary can use that money for anything.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. You quoted ballpark range for a funeral today. Are the costs comparable for a cremation, or are they a little bit different?
It is a little different, and so let me see if I have that on this form. So I have a really good, it's like a funeral expense worksheet that if you did come in, or even if it was like this, like Zoom or something, we could do it all online, and it just will help us figure out, okay, well, what kind of policy are we looking at? Let me see in here. I believe right on this page, it does say for cremation. And right now they're averaging about $2,000. That's just for the cremation, and then additional charges after for the urn. And if you do a memorial service that way, direct cremation service packages. So they have a bunch of different ones, but this could just be like a ballpark to give an idea of how much that could be.
Yeah, it sounds like it'd be anywhere from probably $4,000 to $6,000.
Yeah.
Would be a guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say that is a good estimate for that.
Okay. All right. Well.
Yeah. So yep, the funeral expense worksheet is just a great tool. So I definitely like to go through that with people if that's something that you want to do. It's also a good one I can send home, and you can kind of go through to talk about maybe too with your loved ones. Well, what do I want, or what costs could be involved? And then there is also one of the other attachments that I had sent to some people through email. It was about the funeral rule, which was an act that was put into place designed to protect consumers, to make sure that they're getting the correct, adequate information concerning goods and services that they purchase through a funeral home, and that you do have the ability to call the funeral home and they have to give you prices over the phone, where you don't have to go in and sign up and then they tell you prices, because I think it used to be that way, and that's why this act went into place. So
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then I will, I'll shoot you over an eval, and if you want to talk further, great. If not, there's some other things on here if you're ever interested in, but just kind of little feedback for me too, as how it went today. And yeah, that sounds
all
great.
good. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So no more questions then at this time?
No, I'm good.
Okay, great. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day, and then I'll make sure that this makes it out to our YouTube page, so anybody that would like to watch it can.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Davia. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.